Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Anime Dreams, your gateway to exploring alternate realities within the anime universe. Today's speculative deep dive poses a provocative question. What if Pain's actions didn't break Naruko, but awakened her true power? This hypothetical scenario challenges canon boundaries and unlocks a parallel narrative where suffering becomes the catalyst for transcendence. Disclaimer: the content presented on this channel is strictly for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage featured. All rights and intellectual property belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's begin. A Forest Journey, the tale of Naruko Uzumaki. On the evening of October 10th, a small 7-year-old girl with bright blonde hair and 3 whisker-like markings on each cheek could be seen sprinting quietly through the village streets. As with every year before, young Naruko Uzumaki found herself running from a group of intoxicated villagers during the festival. Although their pursuit had never led to lasting harm, the emotional burden weighed heavily on her. Over the years, Naruko had learned to use her surroundings well and, thanks to the villagers' lack of coordination, she managed to slip into a quiet alley, unnoticed. She exhaled softly in relief before making her way home, her mind clouded with confusion. Why did they treat me like this every year? What have I done to them? She wondered. No matter how hard she tried to be kind, the cold looks and unfair treatment made her feel unwanted. When she arrived at her modest apartment, something felt unusual. Her door was slightly open. She hesitated, then stepped inside, only to suddenly feel dizzy and lose consciousness. A plan gone wrong. Somewhere nearby, 2 men whispered under their breath. Let's just take the child out of the village and leave her in the forest. Maybe someone will find her eventually, said one. I suppose that's better than trying to handle her ourselves, the other replied. They carefully carried Naruko in a large cloth sack and quietly exited the village, heading east through the forest trails. After hours of walking, they set the sack down and left without another word. Into the wild. Hours later, Naruko slowly stirred. She emerged from the cloth bag, blinking in confusion at the unfamiliar trees and quiet woodland. Her surroundings were peaceful, but unfamiliar. I'm in the forest. Why? She thought as memories returned bit by bit. It was clear she had been taken far from her home. Still, she remained calm. I'll find my way back to the village. I've been through worse. Climbing a nearby hill, Naruko searched for any sign of civilization. She couldn't see the village or any buildings in the distance. Taking a deep breath, she chose a direction and began walking. A test of endurance. After running for a while, Naruko grew tired and rested by a large tree. She realized she needed food and water soon. Having lived a hard life since leaving the orphanage, she had learned how to identify edible plants and berries. Yet here, the forest was different. Nothing looked familiar. To prepare, she sharpened a stick into a makeshift tool, hoping to catch a small animal. However, the forest creatures easily evaded her. As the sun began to set, she curled up in a small tree hollow, whispering to herself for comfort before falling asleep. Day 2, a glimmer of hope. The next morning, hunger and thirst pressed harder on her body. She decided her best hope was to find a town or road. With determination, she kept walking in a straight line, hoping it would lead somewhere. Memories of life in the village filled her thoughts. Though she had a roof over her head, life in Konoha was lonely. People avoided her, and even shopkeepers would sometimes refuse her service or charge her more than others. Still, she had always endured. Maybe there's a place where people don't treat me that way, she thought, hope sparking within her. Eventually, Naruko came across a dirt road, rough and unused, but still a sign of human activity. She followed it until nightfall and rested once again, her stomach still empty. Day 3, a gentle discovery. By the third day, her energy was nearly gone. Her steps slowed, and her vision blurred. Despite everything, she kept moving, whispering softly to herself for motivation. Finally, her body gave out, and she collapsed gently to the ground. Not far behind, a tall elderly man with streaks of red and gray in his hair was walking along the same path. On his way to the next village for supplies, he noticed the small figure lying still. Rushing over, he checked and saw she was breathing. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms and headed toward his cabin hidden in the forest. Back in Konoha. Meanwhile, in the Konoha council chambers, a serious meeting was underway. As of this morning, our teams have not located Uzumaki Naruko, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, stated with a heavy heart. I've ordered an extended search. Some council members showed indifference. At last, peace for our village, one muttered, ignoring the gravity of the situation. Hiruzen closed his eyes, sorrow filling his heart. Minato, Kushina. I'm so sorry. I've failed to protect your daughter. From the corner, a council member with his face partly bandaged, named Danzo, remained quiet. Internally, he was already forming plans of his own. Was this a runaway? Danzo asked suddenly. A masked Onbu operative stepped forward. There were no signs of a struggle in her home. The door was open, but her belongings remain. We cannot say for certain whether she left on her own or was taken. Danzo nodded, already considering how this might serve his hidden ambitions. But Hiruzen simply dismissed the meeting with a calm but firm voice. Thank you. You are dismissed. I will inform you if there are further developments concerning Uzumaki Naruko. He stayed seated after the council left, staring into the space ahead, regret washing over him like a quiet tide. Naruko slowly opened her eyes and stared at the dim ceiling above. She glanced around, taking in her surroundings, a small but warm room furnished simply with a few shelves lined with books and modest furniture. Where am I? She whispered aloud, unsure if anyone would hear. To her surprise, a gentle voice replied, You're very much alive, young lady. Though, had I found you any later, you might have been in real danger, said an elderly man kindly. He was seated comfortably in a chair near the corner of the room, watching her with a calm expression. Relieved but confused, Naruko's mind raced. Throughout her challenging life, the only glimpses of kindness she'd ever experienced came in the form of rare visits from the Hokage, brief, formal exchanges mostly about her monthly allowance. She blinked. Why is he looking at me like that? Not with fear. Or disgust. A frown crept across her face. What does he want? Is he pretending to be kind for some reason? But she was far too weak to move, let alone defend herself. If he had meant to harm her, he would have already. Still, the uncertainty made her wary. The elderly man noticed the subtle shifts in her expression and asked, Is something troubling you? Naruko didn't reply immediately. She kept her gaze on him, cautious. Now that she had a better look, she could tell he was quite old, perhaps in his 70s. Yet, like the Hokage, he carried himself with strength. He was of average height, but still seemed to tower over her due to her youth. His eyes were a gentle green, filled with warmth, though Naruko sensed something deeper hidden behind them. Most striking of all was his hair, a faded shade of red streaked with gray. Naruko had never seen anyone with red hair before. Who are you? And why are you helping me? She asked cautiously. The man blinked in surprise, then offered a light chuckle. Helping someone in need doesn't require a reason. My name is Akifumi. And I couldn't possibly ignore someone in trouble. Now, young lady, may I ask your name? Naruko hesitated briefly. This man seemed genuine. And she was in no condition to refuse his hospitality. Uzumaki Naruko, she said quietly. Akifumi's eyes widened just for a moment before he returned to his calm demeanor. Naruko-san, would you like something to eat? You look like you haven't had a proper meal in a while. Naruko nodded eagerly. She was absolutely starving. Even if she had doubts, her hunger was louder than her fear. She tried to sit up on her own but found herself too weak. With some effort, she rolled off the bed, only to land ungracefully on the floor with a soft thud. Akifumi turned quickly at the sound, only to see her on the ground. After a brief pause, he chuckled gently and said, Would you like some help? Naruko let out a soft, embarrassed grunt in agreement. She couldn't even lift her head to glare. With care, Akifumi walked over and supported her, helping her to her feet and guiding her to the next room. The kitchen was small but neatly kept. At the center was a table with a single chair. He must live alone, Naruko thought as she was gently lowered into the seat. Akifumi busied himself in the kitchen, quietly preparing something as Naruko waited. The silence stretched on, making Naruko feel a little awkward, but Akifumi seemed completely absorbed in thought. Uzumaki. That name is not common. Could she be related to the Uzumaki clan? Akifumi mused. Though she doesn't display all their usual traits. Perhaps she's only part Uzumaki? I'll have to be careful how I approach the topic. After a few minutes, Akifumi returned with a neatly prepared bento and placed it in front of Naruko. Her eyes lit up as she shakily reached for the food. As soon as she took her first bite, she felt as though it was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. Seeing the opportunity, Akifumi gently asked, Naruko-san, do you remember how you ended up on the road? Naruko's expression dimmed slightly. She would have preferred to eat in peace, but there was no point in lying. The man had saved her. He deserved the truth. Someone came into my apartment and took me away. I was left alone in the forest. Akifumi blinked in concern. That's troubling. Why would someone do such a thing to a child? Are you from a well-known family? Naruko gave a short laugh, not out of humor, but resignation. No. I'm an orphan. No one ever told me who my parents were. People. Well, some people call me names because they think I'm different. Akifumi's mind was racing now. So she's an orphan. And she mentioned something about people judging her harshly. Strange. Then, something clicked in his memory. Flashback, the day before Akifumi had gently laid Naruko down on the bed and began administering basic healing techniques. When he removed her shirt to check for injuries, he was startled by her condition. She was clearly malnourished. He silently vowed to ensure she received proper meals from now on. As he began to channel chakra into her body using a diagnostic technique, a complex seal appeared on her abdomen. The seal glowed faintly with intricate designs, far too elaborate to be ordinary. It was the 8-trigram seal, a powerful binding technique created by the Uzumaki clan. A seal of that magnitude would typically be used to contain something immensely powerful, something not to be taken lightly. Could she be a Jinchuriki? But why would any village lose track of someone with such a responsibility? Akifumi wondered, his brow furrowed with thought. He decided it was a subject that needed care, and perhaps, in time, Naruko would be ready to share more. End of flashback. Back in the kitchen, Akifumi continued to watch Naruko silently. Her small hand still trembled slightly as she brought food to her mouth, but she was eating with determination. The old man nodded to himself. This girl has been through more than most. But she's strong. Stronger than she knows. I'll help her however I can. Even if the answers take time. What village did you live in before you were taken? Akifumi asked gently, his tone warm and curious. Kanahagakure no Sato, replied Naruko, her voice laced with a hint of frustration. Akifumi's eyes widened in surprise. Kanahagakure had been known to harbor only one-tailed beast, the mighty Nine Tails. He had heard stories that the fourth Hokage had somehow neutralized it, though he had always been doubtful. Tailed beasts were not mere creatures that could be destroyed. They were living embodiments of chakra, beings that had to be sealed, not eliminated. The Nine Tails, in particular, was unique, unmatched in power, and only someone from the Uzumaki clan could feasibly contain it. There was no doubt in Akifumi's mind now. Naruko was indeed an Uzumaki, and the Nine Tails was still very much alive, because its host, its guardian, was sitting right in front of him. Still, he decided it was best to share this information only after she had eaten and regained some strength. The remainder of the meal passed in thoughtful silence. When Naruko finished, she looked a little steadier, able to stand, albeit with effort. Naruko-chan, why don't you sit for a moment? There are some important things I'd like to discuss with you, Akifumi said gently. Naruko sat down and looked at him inquisitively. What is it you want to talk about, Akifumi-san? Naruko-chan, are you familiar with the Nine Tails incident? He asked carefully. Of course. Everyone in the village knows about it. The fourth Hokage gave her life to stop the Nine Tails and protect us all, Naruko said confidently. Akifumi nodded solemnly, but then corrected her gently. That's not quite accurate. The Nine Tails couldn't be destroyed. It is a vast and powerful force of chakra, it can only be sealed. Sealed? Like in a scroll or something? How could anyone possibly contain something that enormous? Naruko asked, disbelief coloring her voice. It's true. Typically, tailed beasts are sealed within humans, hosts strong enough to manage their power. But not just anyone could contain the Nine Tails. Only an Uzumaki could bear such a responsibility, he explained. Naruko tilted her head slightly. Then, who was it sealed into? Akifumi looked at her with quiet compassion. You, Naruko-chan. You are its guardian, its Jinchuriki. But remember, you are not the beast. You are the key that holds it in balance. You are two entirely separate beings. Naruko sat still, wide-eyed. Slowly, the truth began to dawn on her. So many things from her past now made sense, the disapproving glances, the isolation, the way others avoided her without cause. All this time, she had believed she was just an orphan misunderstood by the world. Now she knew the real reason, the Nine Tails was sealed inside her. But why? Why had she been the one chosen? A whirlwind of emotions brewed within her. It wasn't the Nine Tails' fault, it was the decision of those in charge. Why hadn't anyone ever told her? Her thoughts suddenly shifted as she remembered something Akifumi had said earlier, He spoke of the Uzumaki clan as though it still existed. Wait. Did you say Uzumaki like? There are more? She asked with a spark of hope. Akifumi smiled kindly. Yes, the Uzumaki are a clan. One of the most renowned in the world, second only to the Senju and Uchiha in legacy and strength. Naruko was astonished. All her life, she had believed she was entirely alone. Now, not only did she have a clan, but it was one of legendary renown. A smile bloomed on her face. Where are they now? I don't recall any Uzumaki in the village besides me, she asked eagerly. Akifumi's expression turned somber. Most have either gone into hiding or taken on new identities to protect themselves. However, he paused, then smiled warmly. You do have me, Akifumi Uzumaki. Naruko's eyes widened. You're my family? She whispered. Akifumi nodded. Yes. By an extraordinary twist of fate, we've found each other. Naruko could barely process the coincidence, but she felt her heart lighten. She had family. Real family. What happened to the Uzumaki? Why would they need to hide? She asked, her curiosity returning. Akifumi's face darkened slightly as a heavy silence settled over him. Then, with a quiet sigh, he spoke. Have you ever heard of Uzushio Gakure no Sato? Naruko shook her head. No. I've heard the names of the major villages, but never that one. Akifumi's brow furrowed. It was once our home. A strong and independent hidden village on an island near Kirigakure. Uzushio was known for its peace and its unmatched mastery of sealing techniques. But its growth alarmed the other nations. Naruko listened closely, her expression serious. Eventually, 3 great villages, Kumagakure, Iwaigakure, and Sunagakure, formed a secret alliance. They feared our strength. Konoha, though formerly our ally, betrayed us by revealing the secrets of our defenses. With that knowledge, the alliance overwhelmed Uzushio. Many lives were lost, and only a few survived. I was among those entrusted with guiding the remaining civilians to safety, Akifumi said, his voice heavy with remembrance. Naruko's heart sank. The betrayal stung her more than anything. Konoha betrayed you. They betrayed us? She asked softly. Akifumi nodded, his expression solemn. Naruko clenched her fists. She didn't know how to feel, hurt, confused, angry. But one thing became clear, the truth of her past had been hidden from her, and now she was beginning to understand why. Then, what do I do now? She whispered. How can I go back to a village that hid this from me? Akifumi leaned forward, voice calm but firm. You don't have to go back. You can stay here, with me. I can train you, teach you your heritage, and help you grow stronger. Naruko's eyes lit up, though concern lingered. But wouldn't they come looking for me? Perhaps. But given the circumstances of your disappearance, it's likely they believe you are no longer within reach. I can keep this place hidden with advanced illusionary techniques. No one will find us unless we wish it, he assured her. Naruko nodded slowly. All right. I'll stay. I want to know everything about the Uzumaki. About who I am. Akifumi smiled, pleased by her resolve. That's the spirit. But first, you must recover. Rest now, training will come soon. In the meantime, I'll teach you some of our history and the foundation of our clan's unique arts. Naruko's eyes shone with determination. Thank you, Akifumi-san. I'm ready. Fuinjutsu studies. For now, we'll focus on theory and calligraphy practice. Later on, I'll guide you through actual sealing techniques, Akifumi explained warmly. Naruko's eyes sparkled with excitement. Learning the unique art of her clan felt incredibly fulfilling. If she hadn't been born an Uzumaki, perhaps she might have found it a bit dull, but continuing the legacy of her ancestors gave her a deep sense of purpose that easily overrode her naturally energetic spirit. Akifumi headed to his basement, where he kept a modest personal library. He returned carrying several large scrolls detailing the theoretical foundations of Fuinjutsu, along with blank scrolls for practicing calligraphy. Placing them neatly on the table, he turned to Naruko. Every day, after you complete your physical conditioning and chakra exercises, I'll teach you Fuinjutsu. In the evenings, you'll focus on refining your calligraphy and improving your writing speed. He then began explaining the basics of sealing techniques, along with their many peaceful and practical applications. 2 days later. Now that you're fully recovered, we should figure out the best way to begin your training. Have you received any sort of instruction so far, or tried training on your own? Akifumi asked. No one in Konoha wanted to teach the Jinchuriki, Naruko replied quietly, with a touch of sadness in her voice. Akifumi felt a quiet sense of resolve. While unfortunate, this also meant he could guide Naruko from the very beginning, instilling in her what it truly meant to be a shinobi of character and discipline. That's alright. First and foremost, we'll build a strong foundation. We'll start with physical conditioning. After that, you'll move on to chakra control exercises. When I start teaching you techniques, you'll be able to use them effectively and safely. Naruko let out a small sigh, sensing that the training ahead would be challenging. Still, her determination held strong. She knew she couldn't afford to take shortcuts, not when her family's legacy was at stake. She made a quiet promise to herself: she would give her all. No hesitation, no distractions. Everything Akifumi taught her would be treated with the respect it deserved. She would carry the Uzumaki name with pride. And that's a wrap for now, dreamers. If you found value in this content, smash that like button, share it with fellow anime lovers, and don't forget to subscribe to Anime Dreams for more high-tech takes and epic journeys. Stay curious. Stay connected. Until next time, signing off from the future. Anime Dreams.